Yeah, I heard you. This thing has been recommended a lot in the comment sections for Castlevania videos over the years, and let me just say, the hype is well earned. Revamped. I mean, how perfect is this title? Level 4 Games LV.4 Games released this spin on the original Castlevania in 2024, and it's positively brilliant. What we have here is a remix of all iterations of that classic Konami title. The 8-bit NES game is merely the chassis, or skeleton if you prefer being cute about it. The titular castle is built from the same blocks. Thematically, it pushes the envelope with familiar sequences and settings from Haunted Castle, Circle of the Moon, and the Sharp X68000 games. The latter, which most of you probably know as Chronicles on the original PlayStation, is featured the most, with entire areas and backgrounds reimagined from that solitary entry. But I'm getting the cart before the horse here. Let's dig into this truly special adventure. Firstly, Revamped is a PC game for Windows and Linux. Some are going to appreciate these 8-bit style graphics, others won't. I quite like the presentation, there are tons of options to tinker with, and my Xbox controller immediately synced up, which, as you might know if you've watched my other computer fan game reviews, is already a huge leap in the right direction. So many of these things still can't get this basic feature operating without a few hoops to jump through first. Here, it's bing bop into it. Among these easy to toggle features is a CRT filter, which I found too distracting, and all sorts of video and audio switches. Vibration? Do people still play with this on? Am I the weird one, whether I'm on a computer or console? I can't stand it. So with that off, we're into the game. No fuss, no muss. Yeah, okay, so the cutscenes aren't so hot. There are only a few, so they are hardly something to complain about. Yikes, though. Castlevania, am I right? The iconic first stretch into the titular building. Overall, the layout is similar, but there are enough tweaks and expansions straight out of the literal gate to make this feel like its own thing. Simon's movements might take a bit of time to get accustomed to. Agility in the air is much more fluid. Think Alucard from Symphony of the Night with a tad more slipperiness. Actually, scratch that. If I had to pick one game to compare the way this feels, it would have to be Circle of the Moon, for better or for worse. At first, Belmont felt weird for me during this initial stretch, but a few permanent power-ups sorted all of my concerns. It's a different game with its own mechanics, so comparing it to the deliberate, rigid movements of the original NES entry is unfair. Naturally, it's justified, but treating this as its own thing is best, especially considering how LV.4 Level 4 built it from the ground up. Simon begins his journey with a small amount of health and a few measly hearts to use as sub-weapon ammo. Similar to every EGA-era Castlevania and the majority of Metroid Search action titles, permanent upgrades can be accumulated through natural progression. Some are tucked away in some clever spots, so exploration is definitely encouraged, if not necessary. The more imaginative the player, the more they'll be rewarded, but that's all rather self-explanatory. Orbs are spread out sparingly to save progress. Warping between these is possible with the price of a few dollars. Currency plays a big part as the weirdo merchant from the X68000 title sells a variety of items, perks, and cards. The latter is a returning feature from some of the EGA entries, only here they don't drop randomly from enemies. Instead, they're only available from this dude, making it much simpler to deck your character out with features that complement your playstyle. No grinding. It's an interesting system that becomes extremely important the deeper into the castle you go. Bosses are pretty damn tricky, each with their own weakness. They have balanced, predictable patterns, but their massive life bars can feel a bit daunting to dwindle down with melee weapons alone. This is where the card system shines. When I realized that my whip and raw projectiles were barely tickling these hulking monstrosities, I started experimenting. Each sub-weapon has a purchasable perk. The axe gets bigger when the appropriate card is equipped, equipped at the nearest save crystal, boomerang crosses halt mid-flight to deal more damage, and the holy water can be upgraded to leave a trail of explosive residue. These may seem like tiny buffs, but they really do a number on the big bads. Gone are the engraved double and triple shot blocks. The whip upgrades are now permanent, similar to how they work in Simon's Quest. Hearts can be replenished for a low price, a very handy familiar is available to do damage automatically when selected, and there's even a weird looking flying baggie that can be chosen to give the player a chance to recollect their cash upon death. This is a bit of a Souls-like concept, as without it, you're more likely to lose an enormous amount of currency when struck down. Equipping this card not only gives Belmont a chance to reclaim his coins, it also shows on the map where you were killed. I'm not going to go over all these perks, you can see most of them on screen. I rolled with the cash recovery thing and the familiar for the majority of my playthrough. There are only 3 slots, so I saved the final one to swap out sub-weapon buffs. The axe, boomerang, and holy water were my go-to projectiles of choice, but I did find the laurels to be fairly hardy, or rather handy, at the beginning of my adventure. These were first introduced in a different way in Simon's Quest, but they operate the same as they do in the PlayStation remake of the X68000 game here, meaning they sit in the item slot, ready to be used whenever the player wants. 1 tick of health replenishes each time it is popped at the expense of a few hearts, doubled when the card is equipped. Now, I consider myself a competent classic Castlevania player, but I'm not ashamed to admit that ReVamped kicked my ass in the beginning. Enemies and bosses are relatively aggressive. They dart around quickly and can be rather tricky to pin down. This isn't bad though. Things start to balance themselves as Simon starts to flesh out his moveset. Permanent upgrades are drip-fed naturally as we explore the Hell House. The multi-directional whip from the first 16-bit Nintendo entry gets introduced fairly early on, now with a Super Metroid-style shoulder button lock to keep the character in place. Right, so controlling the whip is a cool callback, a fan favorite, definitely a welcomed addition, but not all that surprising. Same can be said for the double jump, wall cling, and slide. These mechanics certainly break the core Castlevania concept wide open, but oh, check these moves out, baby. That's right, Simon can straight up fly now, kids. Sub-Zero style floor slide, terrific, but nothing compares to this ground pound. Complete with splash damage, it even sounds amazing. That's right, this is as satisfying as it looks. These pesky bats with irritating flight patterns are Schrompt, evil undead surface walkers. Nintendo 64 Glover wannabes. Schrompt. Fuck me, Schrompt. Burning Belmont Fiery Inferno. Enchant oneself with a card and you can too. You too can achieve the Schrompt.
Micey, ballsy.
Things are gated by elemental bricks, flame, frost, thunder. These barriers can be busted with the appropriate whip. Simon expectantly starts with the little leather tickler. The Morning Star is next. Then it's all about locating the 3 boundary bashers. It's a clever way to restrict the player. Not all that original, but whatever. There's only so far you can go with this genre. I dig how these ostensible keys are also useful as weapons. Swapping between them is as easy as tapping a button and pressing a cardinal direction. Everything, and I mean everything, is this quick and easy. Menus, toggleable features, and player actions are as intuitive as it gets. The HUD is tidy, the input's responsive. It's a pleasure. There's even a bestiary to pull up for you curious lore folks. It's really quite remarkable how polished this fan project is. Callbacks and Easter eggs exist, but they aren't excessive. Yes, this is an homage to the original Castlevania and all of its direct tendrils, but it stands on its own legs. All of the music is superb, each remix is wonderfully crafted and perfectly placed. The way they handle the underground theme from the X68000 is catchy and tasteful. so awesome to see most of the areas from that often overlooked entry appear throughout this adventure. We've got the water fountain, toy room, and a trippy hallway leading up to the Grim Reaper reimagined here in ReVamped. Smashing candles is always a thing, but here the ones containing items are colored differently, similar to how they are visually distinct in Bloodlines, only there it was the single prong. Getting stuck with the knife is no longer an issue, as it's possible to juggle weapons the way it was introduced in Rondo of Blood. Projectiles remain equipped upon death, and all permanent perks automatically save, even if the player fails to reach a checkpoint before perishing. Spikes don't instantly kill, instead you'll be transported to the last safe space. All of the classic Universal monsters have been given a facelift, new moves, different patterns to learn. The rock monster, Kunu Cthulhu was a minion of the Count. The moon, sure, why the hell not? Toss it in. All of the bosses are a treat, but I'm not sure about Medusa's new look, a bit scraggly, even for a snake lady. Gorgon meat drops regularly, even more frequent when Belmont is low on life. Low life Belmont. No hearts, listen to that, a bit annoying. At the end of the day, this is a densely packed Castlevania homage. Polished is the single word I'd use to describe it. During my half a dozen hours with it, I found 0 bugs or performance issues, which is more than I can say for me on my honeymoon. Give it a shot, you won't be disappointed if you like what you see here. Next time on this channel, more Castlevania Halloween goodness, so stay tuned here on this. Schrompt!